The last thing Gerald expected to hear in a room full of engineers was, "Why don't you go reboot a printer or something?" The laughter that followed was the kind that sticks to your skin, cold and humiliating. It was the kind of morning that started with the taste of metal in the airstorm coming, or maybe just another crisis. The office was a glass and concrete hive, filled with high achievers and louder egos, the sort of place where people wore stress like it was status. At the center of it, Gerald kept his head down, tapping at his laptop in the corner of the conference room, the one seat nobody ever fought for. The big screen flickered with lines of code and dashboards read warnings everywhere, project timelines in free fall. Voices overlapped. Firewall breach. Who has server access? Who ran this patch last night? Gerald, still half in shadow, scanned the logs, fingers flying, piecing together the problem even as the others talked circles. That's when Sarah's voice sliced through the noise. If Heidi would stop fiddling and just listen for once, maybe we'd have answers. She didn't look at him when she said it, but her gaze skimmed past his badge and landed on the expensive watch of the CTO. "We need leadership here, not tech support from the street." A few people smirked. Someone at the table coughed, too loud. The CEO said nothing. Gerald felt the blood in his ears. He wanted to say, "Check the server logs on Node 6, the breach started there." He wanted to say, "Your last leadership nearly cost this company everything." Instead, he just clicked his screen, patched the hole, and sent a quiet email fix. Deployed leak contained audit attached. Sarah turned to him, voice pitched high enough for the whole table. "Honestly, Gerald, why don't you just stay quiet and let the adults talk? We'll call you if the coffee machine crashes." Nobody objected. The air was sharp with it. For a moment, even the hum of the servers seemed to go silent. He stared down at his hands, the color of his skin against the keys, the way people looked past him until they needed something only he could do. He stood up quietly and left the room. The glass wall behind him reflected a tableau, the powerful, the loud, and the invisible. Out in the hallway, his phone buzzed alerts, security logs, a silent digital war that only he seemed to notice. He paused at the window, watching the clouds build over the skyline, then squared his shoulders and returned to work. Back in the conference room, Sarah was already rewriting the story. "We got lucky," she said, fanning herself with the incident report. "Crisis averted, team. Everyone reset, focus. Some of us have real jobs to do." Laughter. Real laughter, the kind that carries power. Gerald was already gone, a ghost in his own office. But not one person in that room had noticed the file he left behind: evidence, logs, a chain of events that should have landed as a warning. Instead, it sat unread, marked as low priority by Sarah herself. 3 days later, the building would be packed, every seat in the main hall full, executives whispering, the tension like static in the air. But for now, the IT guy was invisible again, and that was exactly how they wanted it. There's a certain kind of silence that settles in offices after public humiliation, a heavy, sticky silence that outlasts the echoes of laughter. The day after the conference room debacle, that silence trailed Gerald everywhere he went, following him down hallways and into elevators, hovering in the air above his cubicle like a thundercloud nobody else could see. But while Sarah's barbed words replayed in his mind, Gerald's hands stayed busy. The data breach hadn't been a fluke. He'd seen the signature before, sloppy, amateurish, but persistent. Someone was probing, getting bolder. The company's new product, hyped in headlines and whispered about by venture capitalists, was a neon bullseye for hackers, and the C-suite was too busy performing leadership to notice. So Gerald stayed late. He watched. He listened. He ran silent diagnostics and traced IPs, patched holes, and left paper trails for anyone who cared to look. But no one did. Monday. By 9 a.m., the office was alive with energy espresso shots, clattering keyboards, the chime of Slack messages piling up like snowdrifts. Gerald moved quietly from desk to desk, troubleshooting Wi-Fi for the marketing team. "Sorry, we have a meeting with the VC in 10. Can you hurry up? Resetting passwords for a project manager." "I told you I'm not good with computers. Why can't you just make it password 123? And fielding a dozen requests that all ended with the same backhanded thanks. "You're a lifesaver, really. Sorry you have to do this kind of work." By noon, Sarah was holding court in the break room, recounting her IT support story for a new crop of interns. Her voice cut through the noise. "He just sat there, silent as always. You know the type. I mean, if you can't speak up, maybe you don't belong in the room, right? Laughter, low and mean. Someone snickered. Betty makes good money for plugging in routers. Gerald heard every word but kept his head down, waiting for the coffee to finish brewing. One intern glanced at him, eyes apologetic, but said nothing. He took his mug and left, shoulders tight, remembering his mother's voice. You don't have to fight every battle, but never let them forget you're there. Show them with your work, not your words. But work was getting harder. That afternoon, Sarah's tone shifted from patronizing to poisonous. She called him to her office. Gerald, I'm going to need a list of every device that accessed our databases last week. Full list, IPs, locations, everything. Her smile was tight, managerial, practiced. Of course. Anything specific you're looking for? She didn't answer the question. And while you're at it, can you run a scan on your own login history? I've noticed some irregularities. She leaned in, her perfume cloying, her tone sweet as syrup. Don't take this the wrong way, but we can't have any mistakes right now. You get it, right? She wanted him on the defensive. He knew the move shift the blame, cast suspicion, make him the problem. Sure, Gerald said quietly. I'll run the report. He went back to his desk and did exactly that. He knew what she was fishing for someone to pin the breach on, anyone but herself or her friends in management. He sent her the logs within the hour. She didn't reply. Tuesday. It got worse. IT requests spiked overnight. Half the staff claimed their systems were glitching. Files disappeared, and key folders reappeared with subtle changes. The dev team complained of slowdowns. HR pinged Gerald about suspicious activity on their shared drive, suggesting, with a nudge and a wink, that maybe someone from IT was snooping. Sarah sent an all-staff email. As you all know, we recently suffered a minor security incident. Our IT team is on it, but I encourage everyone to be vigilant and report anything strange. Remember, cybersecurity is everyone's responsibility. Let's support each other and keep an eye out for mistakes. For teamwork. The subtext was clear. Blame was in the air, and it was looking for a home. At lunch, Gerald sat in the park across the street, staring at pigeons fighting over crusts. He replayed every conversation from the last 24 hours, trying to pinpoint the moment it all tipped from indifference to open hostility. Was it the breach itself, or the way he quietly fixed it? Was it Sarah's resentment of the help, or something deeper? His phone buzzed a message from his little sister, a gif of a dancing cat and the words, "Don't let the turkeys get you down." He smiled, feeling the knot in his chest loosen just a bit. He went back to work. He checked the server logs again, and again and again. The attacker was still trying, only now the moves were bolder, almost taunting. Whoever it was had inside knowledge. That evening, as most of the office packed up to leave, Sarah cornered him again. Hey Jarrell, can you stay late tonight? Some of us have real deadlines. Maybe you can finally earn that paycheck. The words stung, but he didn't flinch. No problem. He stayed until midnight, hard drive glowing in the dark, sweat prickling on his scalp. He traced the hack to a third-party plugin that Sarah's team insisted on, over IT's warnings. He drafted a report detailing the risk, the vulnerability, the chain of events. He hesitated before sending it, knowing how it would be received. Then he sent it anyway. He packed his bag and took the freight elevator down, passing security guards who barely glanced at him. He didn't sleep that night. He ran through scenarios in his mind. What if they fired him? What if they tried to blame him? He thought about his father, the way he once came home from a factory job, hands bloody from a machine accident, and still smiled. If they don't see you, make them feel you. Wednesday. The news hit at 9:03 a.m. Dre. Due to ongoing security concerns, the company has been acquired by an outside investment group. There will be a mandatory all-hands meeting Friday at 10 a.m. in the main hall. Please direct all questions to HR. The office buzzed with panic. Who are the buyers? What would happen to jobs, bonuses, options? Sarah moved through the chaos with forced confidence, barking orders. Business as usual, people. We have work to do. But rumors swirled, layoffs, mergers, secret meetings behind closed doors. Gerald watched quietly as Sarah's bravado faltered. She snapped at the receptionist, demanded urgent reports from underlings, sent passive-aggressive emails about professionalism and punctuality. At 1:30 p.m., Sarah called an emergency team meeting. Everyone, listen up. Its investigation into the breach has been insufficient. Until further notice, all admin access is to be routed through me or Mark. And Gerald, I'm going to need your badge and your laptop. Standard procedure. The room went silent. People looked away, some relieved it wasn't them. Gerald's hands didn't shake as he handed over his badge and laptop. You want a written statement? She waved him off. Just go home. We'll be in touch. No one met his eyes as he walked to the elevator. The doors slid closed and the world shrank to silence. Outside, the city felt alien. He walked for an hour, letting the cold cut through his jacket, then took the long way home, riding the subway past his stop, staring at his reflection in the black glass. He thought about the ways he'd been made small every side-eyed glance, every accidental mispronunciation of his name, every assumption about what he could and couldn't do. But he also thought about his mother's laughter, his father's stubborn hope, and the code he'd written lines of defense, invisible but unbreakable. He didn't cry. He didn't rage. He just watched the city flicker past, streetlights blinking, a river of people who would never know his name. Thursday. The phone rang at 8:03 a.m. HR. We're conducting an internal review. Please be available for a remote interview at 9 a.m. This is not a disciplinary action. He dressed in a clean shirt, tied his hair back, sat at his kitchen table, and waited for the video call to connect. 3 faces appeared, the HR director, a lawyer he'd never met, and Sarah, looking smug. They grilled him about protocol violations, unauthorized access, failure to escalate security risks. Sarah smiled whenever they implied incompetence, frowned when he offered proof. Gerald stayed calm. He answered every question with precision, cited logs and emails, even referenced the IT security handbook. He watched the lawyer's eyes flicker with surprise at his answers. Sarah's smile faded, replaced by a brittle impatience. At the end, HR said, "Thank you for your cooperation. We'll be in touch regarding your employment status." Sarah leaned into her webcam, voice low. "Next time, stay in your lane, Gerald. We don't need heroes." He closed the laptop and sat still for a long time, listening to his own breath. Friday. The building was packed, people in suits, people in hoodies, every department squeezed into the main hall. Anxiety filled the air, whispers, sweaty palms, fake smiles. A stage was set up at the front, a screen behind it, security guards at the exits. Sarah sat near the front row, flanked by her inner circle, phone in hand, jaw clenched. The new owners were due any minute. Jarrell waited outside, unseen. He watched the windows, the streaming light, the movement of the crowd. He saw Mark pace nervously, HR hand out folders, Sarah check her reflection in her phone camera. He waited until the crowd settled. Then he entered through a side door, unseen. 3 days had passed since he'd been made invisible, but he had never disappeared. Inside, as the lights dimmed and the new CEO was announced, Sarah leaned back smug, certain she was untouchable. Mark whispered in her ear, "Think it's someone from Tech Axis?" "I heard rumors." Sarah smiled, already calculating her next move. But then the new CEO walked out on stage, and Sarah's smile froze. The applause died. Gerald stepped up to the microphone, a folder in his hand, eyes clear, back straight. For the first time, the entire company saw him. The auditorium was packed wall to wall, but for a few suspended heartbeats, there was only silence. It was the silence before a storm, a hush loaded with questions, disbelief, and a rising current of something electric, almost dangerous. Sarah stared up at the stage, her lips parting, her eyes wide. For one impossible second, she couldn't even process what she was seeing. Gerald? Up there? In a crisp suit, confident, composed nothing like the IT guy she'd humiliated. He stood with quiet authority, waiting for the crowd to recognize him. They did, slowly. Whispers rippled across the room. "Isn't that... Wait, he was fired. What's going on?" Gerald's gaze swept the faces. Some people shrank into their seats. Some looked ashamed. A few looked hopeful. Sarah looked trapped. "Thank you all for coming," Gerald began, his voice clear and steady. "My name is Gerald Adams. Until this week, I was your IT specialist. Today, I stand here as the new CEO." Murmurs became a wave. Someone laughed, thinking it was a joke. The board members at the side of the stage nodded gravely. No joke. 3 days ago, Gerald continued, This company suffered a breach that could have destroyed us, but the breach was just a symptom. The real threat was something else, a culture that silences talent, allows discrimination, and punishes those who dare to speak up. He clicked a remote. The screen behind him came alive with charts, logs, receipts, the paper trail he'd left, the warnings unheeded, the evidence ignored. Then came the messages. Sarah's messages. A string of racist and condescending emails, screenshots of private chats. Just the tech support guy, he'll do as he's told. Probably got the job through a quota. If he screws up, I'll make sure it lands on him. Her words, her fingerprints, gasps. The room felt smaller, the air sharper. Gerald didn't flinch. I want you all to see how it happens, how invisible walls are built. I was never meant to be more than a ghost here. But the thing about ghosts, they see everything. Sarah stood, voice trembling. This is out of context. He's twisting things. Gerald looked at her, eyes steady. You said I should be quiet while adults work, but the real adults fix what's broken. They protect the vulnerable. They lead with integrity. He paused, letting the silence settle, then clicked again. The new ownership group, a fund I founded with partners, acquired this company to rebuild it. Today, we start over. He turned to the crowd. If you ever felt silenced, overlooked, invisible, you're seen now. If you ever raised a hand and got laughed at, know this: skill and character matter here, not privilege or prejudice. We rise together or not at all. Security moved quietly down the aisle. Gerald's voice cut through. There will be no tolerance for discrimination or abuse. The following employees are terminated, effective immediately. He read names. Sarah's was first. Sarah tried to protest, but her words died in her throat. Everyone was watching. The power she'd wielded for years vanished in a blink. She tried to storm off, but her legs buckled. Someone helped her up, but no one defended her. Other names followed those who'd mocked, who'd bullied, who'd covered for each other while others suffered. One by one, they stood, faces white with fear and shame. For the rest, Gerald nodded. If you're willing to work for something better, stay. If not, you know the way out. Applause, hesitant at first, then growing. Someone in the back stood up, others followed. A standing ovation. Some people wept, some hugged. The atmosphere was different, lighter, for the first time in years. Gerald looked down, feeling the weight of it all. He remembered his father's hands, rough but kind. His mother's words, show them with your work, not your words. He smiled, small and real. Later, as people filed out, someone approached him, a young developer, the one who'd looked apologetic at the coffee machine. Thank you, she whispered. I thought I was alone. You're not, Gerald said. Not anymore. The building felt new somehow, though nothing had changed except the rules and the people who would write them from here on out. Out on the street, Sarah sat on the curb, phone shaking in her hand, staring into nothing. Gerald walked past, paused, and met her eyes. I hope you learned something from this, he said quietly. Everyone deserves respect, no matter what you think you see. He didn't wait for an answer. Above the city, clouds were finally breaking, light streaming through glass, falling on everyone the same way.